Okay, today I'm at Wolverhampton Racecourse, talking to Jason Weaver, Broadcaster of the Year. Jason, thank you very much for agreeing to talk to us today. How did it feel to win that, especially voted for by your peers?
First off, I certainly didn't expect to win it, and it was, or is a great honour, and obviously, very, very happy to win it, as you quite rightly said, voted for by the guys and gals that you're working with day in and day out.
But you've been broadcasting now for, I think, 17 years, so you've earned your stripes there. Can you give us just a little bit of history about how you got into broadcasting when you finished being a jockey?
Yeah, I had some well-publicised weight issues that were the reason for my retirement, and I rode a horse for a guy called Jim Ramsey many years ago, called Al Dahi, for Rod Millman, and when I'd given up, he was just starting up a new racing channel, and he gave me a call and asked me to go down for an interview in London. Jim Ramsey was the guy who asked me to go down and have a chat with him.
Okay, so can we take you right back to the beginning, please? Brought up in Wales.
Yep.
Now, I've read somewhere that rugby, not racing, was your first love. Is that true?
Very much so, yes. Luckily enough, I was scrum half for Newport Schools and Gwent. The next stop from that was the Welsh schoolboys. Really, really enjoyed it until I started getting my teeth and everything else knocked out and broken. I really, really did enjoy it until the lads were enormous.
Okay, so how did the transition to horse racing come about? When did you sort of first sit on a horse?
I hadn't sat on a horse very early on in my career, and we used to go to Trellick pony riding out, pony riding school, and we went there on weekends, and I started to enjoy it. My sister was the first one who got a pony in the family, and I'll let you in. I didn't get to ride the pony very much. My sister used to ride it all the time. I used to ride the bike, so that was all it was. She was older. So I found a pony across the estate from where we lived, was owned by a woman called Wendy Hoy, little 12-2 dapple grey called Volvo. And he was in a field, he had laminitis, which was a terrible foot illness that the horses get. And anyway, I wanted to buy this pony, but I didn't have any money, and I found Wendy, and she said, well, how much have you got? And I said, well, I've got £32 and a fridge freezer. And she said, well, let me have a look at the fridge freezer. So she came over, and there was, the big old fridge freezers that you used to have in your garage, the open top ones. So she took the 32 quid out of my money box, and I wheeled the fridge freezer across the estate to hers and brought the pony home and stuck it in the back garden, unbeknown to my mother and father that I had sold the fridge freezer for this pony. So when they came home, oh boy, I was in a world of pain for quite a while, but they forgave me and let me keep the pony.
When I was doing my research, I did read, it seems that your mother was quite keen, because I read that she put you on boiled rice and apples for 6 weeks to get into the racing school.
Yeah, that's very true.
Was that a part of the punishment, or was it?
No, that was later on, obviously. That's a few years after Volvo. But yeah, I played a lot of rugby. My games teacher at school was fantastic. He actually played for Wales. And when my dad was in the RAF, Wales were touring East Africa at the time, and as a warm-up, Wales rugby played the RAF. So my games teacher at the time, Brian Price, he used to, when I was getting changed in the corner of the changing room as a kid in Wales, -4 outside, he would reach his hand from about 7'4" and hit me on the back of the head, and he'd say, Weaver, that's what I did to your father when I played him. So and then obviously further down the line, I was into the ponies and everything else, and I was too big to get into the racing school at the time. You had to be under 8 stone to get into the British racing school, and I was around about 8'7", 8'10", so I'm just under 16, that weight already. My mother put me on boiled rice and apples to get me under the required weight to get into the racing school.
And then fast forward, you ended up with Luca Cumani. You started up with Luca Cumani.
Yeah, I went to Luca's for 5 weeks, on to the racing school for 9 weeks, and then I was, luckily enough, he said that he would take me back after that, and that was where I started my apprenticeship.
You won the apprentice title in 1993 with 60 winners.
Yeah.
And then the year after, you won the 2,000 guineas and
Yeah.
the 200 winners.
Yeah.
That's quite a meteoric rise. Is all that a bit of a blur?
Well, I'd won the Champion Apprentice title, and listen, I've been very, very lucky because I've a picture on my wall at home of myself handing the apprentice title to David Harrison, who is now in a wheelchair after a horrific fall in Hong Kong. And it's just, listen, I was very, very blessed. I won the Guineas the next year after my apprentice title. I rode 200 winners in that season. My 200th winner came here at Wolverhampton. Listen, the hardest part for me of my career, if we go back to boiled rice and apples, the riding and the talking and the racing was the easy part. Winning was the easy part. The hardest part for me was beating the scales.
And also beating Frankie Dettori, because you rode 200 winners and he still beat you for the Jockeys Championship, which is pretty unlucky.
Yeah.
But you're great mates with him, apparently.
Yeah, no, he's a great lad. We grew up together at Luca's, and we had a really good battle that year. He still rode some ridiculous amount of winners, 230 something he rode that year. But no, we remain good mates to this day.
Now, is the camaraderie of jockeys and the weighing room, is that a real thing, or is that just a bit of fluff, really? Is there sometimes some needle between competitive riders?
Oh, there's massive needle, unquestionably. There are certain riders who you bump into on the way around, and you're going to have your time to, it will happen, the boot will be on the other foot. But yeah, there's definite needle in there, of course there is. But yeah, is there great fun in there? Yes. But let's not forget that we're in a multi-million-pound industry, and if you want to be the best, you've got to be competitive.
Now, you come across, obviously, a lot of jockeys you came across in your time. Who were the ones that made the most impression on you for whatever reason?
We all looked up to Pat Eddery in the corner of the weighing room. God, as he was affectionately known, and still remains his number on my mobile. Everybody else has their name. There's a few characters on there, but the one, if ever I was looking for Pat Eddery, I would always look for God, and he's still under that on my phone. He's a great guy. It didn't matter if he had won the Derby or won a cellar at Wolverhampton, or he vice versa, just got beat in the Derby or just got beat at whatever race. He was exactly the same day in and day out, and that is key.
Okay, now I don't want names, but what were the best and worst types of trainer to ride for?
Listen, if you get too many orders, it becomes impossible because you're on a hide into nothing. That it means that you either win and it's correct, or if you get beat, no matter what you do, you've been wrong. So too many orders definitely confuse things and get jockeys into an awful sort of situation. Best trainers I rode for, listen, I had two fantastic jobs. I worked as a kid when I was in school for Milton Bradley, and I was lucky enough to ride winners for him after I'd got my licence with Luca. But I had two jobs in racing. They were Luca Cumani and Mark Johnson, and they were both super to ride for.
Now, I interviewed Luke Harvey recently, your sidekick.
Yep.
And he told me that as a young jockey, he was sometimes approached by less than savoury characters and asked not to win. Did that ever happen to you?
No.
Okay, so you retired in 2002, age 30, and as you say, you had weight problems.
Yeah.
In hindsight, was it the right decision to retire then?
100% it was the right decision. I wasn't in a particularly good place mentally. and I had no longer become the product I wanted to be out on the track. My mental state of what I was pushing myself to from a physical point of view of losing weight just wasn't having a good effect on me.
And was there a catalyst moment when you thought, that's it?
It had been building for a very, very long time, and I sat down one evening and spoke with my better half, Fiona, and I was extremely upset, but it was the right thing to do at that time.
Now you say at that time, with the current support and nutrition advice available to jockeys now,
Yep.
do you think you could have possibly carried on for a few more years had you had that back in those days?
I suppose it's always a possibility, but I look at the scales now. I mean, at my peak I was probably about 13.5 stone. I'm 11.5 at the moment. And do I think I could be 3 stone under where I am now and still be healthy? No.
So, do you have any regrets at all about your time as a jockey, things that you might have done differently?
If I could have won on more horses that you didn't have a particular good run round on, I suppose that's always something that is with you. But do I look back on it? No. I honestly look back on it and believe that I was absolutely blessed.
Does racing differ now in any respect to how it did when you were at your peak as a jockey?
There is a lot more racing. I mean, even when I started, we didn't have all-weather racing, so it was March to November was where it started. Everybody geared up for Doncaster and finished at Doncaster for the November meeting. So yeah, it's changed massively. The pressure on the lads is probably even more intense now than it was back then.
And do you still ride recreationally?
No.
Okay, brilliant, thank you.